Well, let's speak further about that story. Bring into the conversation OUTA CEO Wayne Duvenage. Wayne, a very good evening to you. Welcome back to SABC News. So we don't yet know, right, or have confirmation that Marius van der Merwe was assassinated because he'd appeared at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and given evidence about alleged wrongdoing in the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, or if in fact it was linked to the work that he was doing in the private security company. But where the inquiry is concerned, do you foresee that his assassination will ultimately have an impact on witnesses, especially the willingness of people to participate in the inquiry process?
Look, it is a problem. We do get a sense that whistleblowers do start to get worried. We engage with whistleblowers on a regular basis, and we have on a number of occasions seen whistleblowers pull back and not want to participate in an inquiry or giving evidence to us because they do fear for their lives and their livelihoods. Even those, in some cases, that have left the organization but want to just inform us of so serious wrongdoing of what's happening, they fear for their lives. So they've got jobs in one or two cases that we see this. But it is so sad to see how, they are targeted and they are pushed out of organizations and their livelihoods are terribly affected. And this incident just makes matters worse for us.
And in Van der Merwe's case, we're told that a government briefing over the weekend, in fact, a day after he'd been assassinated on the Saturday, that ultimately he was offered a degree of protection, declined that offer because he was in the private security industry and apparently believed that he had sufficient protection. I wonder, though, if that should be something that is optional or left to the individual to decide whether they accept or decline, given the level of evidence and the sort of issues that are being dealt with by this commission.
Yeah, I think it's quite rare that you'll have somebody declining it, and he's got his own security company. One can understand why he possibly did. I don't think he should have been given the choice, quite frankly, because we know what the potential of assassination is, especially in high-profile cases like this. As we've seen now, hindsight is always an exact science, but it is something that, if you had a proper whistleblower protection agency in place, and it could assess the degree of required protection, wouldn't give somebody like even Mr. Van der Merwe the option. He should have been protected. He should have had guards at his house. He should have had far more security placed around him, and that wasn't the case. So it just opens this whole scenario and the story and this requirement that we've been calling for since Zondo's days, where we need a formal independent whistleblower structure that can do this type of work a lot more meaningfully.
And on the idea then of the establishment of an independent whistleblower agency, which you referenced again at the Babita Deokaran Memorial Lecture or the anti-corruption lecture delivered yesterday, how would that agency have to be structured in order to be able to protect the most, shall we say, powerful or most efficient, in fact, for want of a better word, level of protection for individuals?
Well, I think it needs to be independent, first of all. It needs to have the funds and the resources, because we're not just talking about protection or physical protection. We're talking about psychological protection. We're talking about funds just to keep their homes that they may have bonds on, because when they get fired on trumped-up charges, they run out of money. So they need funds to defend themselves in court as well. And these are a whole lot of array of recommendations that have been put forward, and nothing has been done about it. The current Whistleblowers Protected Disclosure Act is just not enough. It falls very short of what the requirements are of whistleblowers. So we've got a long way to go. The recommendations are there. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of meetings on this, and nothing has happened. And I think there needs to be a political will now, because I can tell you one thing, that Marius van der Merwe's assassination is not the last. There will be more until this government starts taking this issue more seriously.
And just to test your thoughts on something, I'm looking at a statement that's just come in fact, from the economic freedom fighters, saying that while the party notes that ultimately the visit by this delegation from the Madlanga Commission was undoubtedly an act of compassion, what it might do is give an opportunity to the implicated people to now raise questions around the neutrality of the process. Do you think that's what's going to happen post this, that perhaps the commissioners and the evidence leader should have stayed away?
No, not at all. I think the economic freedom fighters are just, grandstanding here. Quite frankly, you have to have empathy. This is an individual who was in their midst giving evidence. He has been assassinated. There's nothing wrong with the evidence leaders doing what they did. So really, I think that's just a sideshow from the EFF.
Lastly then, Wayne, if the murder of Marius van der Merwe was linked to the evidence that he gave at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, Babita Deokaran in 2021 was killed after she flagged corruption at the Tembisa Hospital, which has ballooned far beyond the invoices that she had flagged shortly before her killing. You've got someone like Athol Williams, who basically had to go into exile, into hiding, because he was punished for his role as a whistleblower in this country. For people who are sitting in various corners of the country, who are seeing wrongdoing in their entities or other places that they know of, what is the point of speaking out, standing up for what is right, when ultimately you may have to abandon your family, your country, or in the worst case, end up in the ground?
Yeah, look, it's a serious matter. And let me just say this, whistleblowers, we owe a debt of gratitude to every whistleblower. Whistleblowers are the people that are going to help us deal with corruption, and meaningfully so. But what they do need to do is be very, very careful. So our message always to whistleblowers is stay employed if you can. Make sure that you never get caught gathering information. Don't download information from your computers. When you're in meetings, turn your phone upside down, record discussions, take screenshots with your phone. Just be very, very careful, though, and do protected disclosures.
But is it worth the risk, Wayne, is what I'm trying to figure out, when you look at what could possibly happen?
I think you have to weigh it up. And again, this is why we need a whistleblowers protection agency, a dedicated one that can help and guide whistleblowers, because they often need just guidance on how to go about what they're doing. They're very, very important. But I would say to a whistleblower, if you feel threatened, and when we see this, as I said earlier on, if you feel that it's not worth it, then you obviously have to keep your head down and do not blow the whistle, because your life and your job and keeping your job and employment is far more important. That is the sad reality until we get this attention paid to this whistleblower agency, so that we can empower and enable whistleblowers to speak up. Until then, if I was in their shoes in a similar situation, and I may regret saying this because we need whistleblowers to come forward, but if I were in their shoes, not risk my life or my livelihood. And we can see very clearly we're moving closer and closer to a gangster state when people like Marius, Babita Deokaran, Paul Mafole recently in Ekurhuleni and others are assassinated because they want to stand on the right side of truth.
Wayne Duvenage, good to talk to you, the CEO of the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, speaking to us on The Full View here on SABC News.